Newcastle United are set to miss out on Victor Munoz.
Ah, here we go again.
However, the club is already in talks for an alternative better than him. We'll also discuss the latest news regarding Sandro Tonali's future, as well as reveal Yoane Wissa's history-making goal as his whole life flashed before his eyes. As per, join us as we'll break it all down and discuss the latest Newcastle United transfer news.
Let's go!
So starting off, Newcastle United appear to have suffered one of the most frustrating transfer blows of the summer after missing out on Victor Munoz when the deal looked all but complete. For several days, all signs pointed towards the Osasuna winger becoming a Newcastle player. Reports from Spain suggested a fee had been agreed, personal terms had been settled, and even Real Madrid, who retained significant control over the player through various clauses, had signed off on the move. At one stage, it genuinely felt like a matter of when rather than if. That is why the sudden twist involving Liverpool has left so many Newcastle supporters stunned. According to Keith Downey, Newcastle had effectively done all of the hard work. The club had negotiated a package worth around £29 million, plus a further £4.3 million in bonuses with Osasuna. Personal terms had also been agreed with the player, meaning there appeared to be very few obstacles remaining before the deal could be finalized. Yet somewhere during the final stages, everything changed. Downey explains that while Newcastle believed they were on course to complete the signing, Liverpool had remained in the background throughout the process. Rather than disappearing from the race, the Premier League giants continued monitoring developments and were ready to act if an opportunity presented itself. That opportunity arrived when Munoz's representatives reportedly pressed pause on the proposed move to St. James Park. The reasons behind that decision remain unclear, but the delay opened the door for Liverpool to make their move. Once the Reds agreed a deal worth around £34.5 million, the players' preference shifted, and Newcastle suddenly found themselves on the outside looking in. It is a painful reminder that in modern football, even deals that appear completed can unravel in a matter of hours. From Newcastle's perspective, this one will hurt more than most because they had already invested significant time into the negotiations. This was not a case of losing a player early in discussions or being priced out of a move. By all accounts, Newcastle had reached the point where they expected Munoz to become one of the club's marquee summer additions. Instead, they have been left empty-handed. What makes the situation even more frustrating is that there does not appear to be one obvious factor to blame. Newcastle agreed a fee, agreed terms, and had seemingly navigated the complicated Real Madrid situation successfully. If Downey's information is accurate, the decisive moment came when the player and his camp paused proceedings long enough for Liverpool to step in. Naturally, there will be questions inside St. James Park about how that happened. Reports suggest Newcastle will review the process and try to establish exactly where the deal slipped away. Whether they receive clear answers is another matter entirely. Transfer negotiations are often far more complicated than supporters realize, with agents, family members, advisors, and competing clubs all influencing the final outcome. Unfortunately for Newcastle, the outcome is all that matters. The bigger issue now is how the club responds. Anthony Gordon's departure has left a significant gap in Eddie Howe's attack, and Munoz had emerged as one of the leading candidates to fill it. The most disappointing aspect for supporters is not necessarily losing Munoz himself. While highly rated, there is no guarantee he would have become the perfect replacement for Gordon. What stings is how close Newcastle appeared to be before watching another club swoop in at the final moment. For a fan base that still remembers missing out on Hugo Ekitike after lengthy negotiations, it feels like an all-too-familiar story. The good news for Newcastle is that this summer has already shown signs of being more proactive than previous windows. Yoane is already through the door, recruitment work is ongoing across several positions, and there is still plenty of time remaining. The bad news is that replacing a player of Gordon's importance was never going to be easy, and missing out on a priority target only makes that task even harder. However, even though Newcastle United may have missed out on Victor Munoz, but it appears they have wasted little time identifying an alternative. According to reports, the Magpies have already opened discussions with FC Köln winger Said El Mal. The timing is significant. Missing out on Munoz was a frustrating setback given how advanced Newcastle's negotiations reportedly were before Liverpool stepped in. However, the club's quick pivot towards El Mala suggests they had contingency plans in place long before the Munoz deal collapsed. At just 19 years old, El Mala is regarded as one of the brightest young attacking talents in Germany. After breaking into Köln's first team, he enjoyed a remarkable campaign, producing 13 goals and 4 assists, despite starting only 20 league matches. That output alone explains why Newcastle are so interested. While Victor Munoz looked like a natural Anthony Gordon successor stylistically, El Mala offers a slightly different profile. He is less reliant on explosive pace and constant dribbling, instead combining direct running with a stronger goal-scoring instinct. In fact, when comparing their league numbers from last season, El Mala comes out on top in several key attacking areas. Munoz registered 6 goals and 2 assists in 34 appearances, while El Mala produced 13 goals and 4 assists from the same number of matches. He also created more big chances and consistently delivered decisive contributions despite seeing far less of the ball. Those figures suggest Newcastle could be signing a player with a higher attacking ceiling rather than simply a like-for-like Gordon replacement. There are still areas for improvement. El Mala is not yet as involved in build-up play as Munoz, and tends to make his biggest impact in the final third, rather than throughout every phase of possession. That is perfectly normal for a teenager, however, and arguably makes his production even more impressive. Competition will be fierce. Tottenham Hotspur are also monitoring the German youngster, and with an estimated valuation of around £35 million, Newcastle will need to move quickly if they decide he is their preferred target. The encouraging part for Newcastle supporters is that the club appears determined not to repeat the mistakes of previous transfer windows. Rather than spending weeks dwelling on losing Munoz, attention has already shifted towards another highly rated young attacker who may ultimately prove to be an even better fit. Missing out on Munoz undoubtedly hurt, especially given how close the deal appeared to be. But if Newcastle can secure El Mala, there is every chance supporters will quickly forget about the Spaniard. Sometimes the best transfers are the ones clubs are forced into making after Plan A falls apart. Newcastle will now be hoping said El Mala becomes exactly that kind of signing. Then Newcastle United's hopes of keeping Sandro Tonali are facing increasing scrutiny, as speculation surrounding a potential move to Tottenham Hotspur continues to gather momentum. The Italian midfielder has been linked with several Premier League clubs in recent months, including Arsenal, Manchester United, and Manchester City. However, it now appears that Tottenham are emerging as the most serious contenders for his signature.
The news of Sandro Tonali and the interest coming from Tottenham. Do you have some extra bits for us?
Yeah, I see a lot of excitement on social media on this one from Tottenham fans, of course. I maintain my update, my news. So, first of all, Tottenham are in conversations with Sandro Tonali's camp. Second, Sandro Tonali wants to go to Tottenham, and so he's keen on the move. And I don't think there's going to be any problem with the player financially or in terms of contract, also because the connection with the Zerbi is very clear. As I was mentioning in a video yesterday, they're both from Brescia, same city, so the connection is very, very good. And also important to mention on this one about Sandro Tonali, soon Tottenham will reach out to Newcastle to start conversations. Then the price is going to be the point. Let's see. I think the expectation is going to be around 100 million euros, maybe something more as initial request, and then let's see the conversation. But Zerbi is pushing, and so let's wait for the club-to-club negotiation, but Tottenham are on it.
The real challenge will be convincing Newcastle to sell. Romano reports that Newcastle are expected to demand in excess of £85 million, with an initial valuation believed to be around €100 million, or £86.5 million, or potentially even higher. That would make Tonali one of the most expensive midfielders in Premier League history. From Newcastle's perspective, there is little incentive to sell unless an extraordinary offer arrives. Despite an inconsistent season by his own standards, Tonali remains one of the club's most talented players and a key part of Eddie Howe's long-term plans. Recent reports have even suggested that he could be added to the club's leadership group following the departures of several senior figures. That said, football transfers are rarely decided by clubs alone. If Romano's information is accurate and Tonali genuinely wants the move, Newcastle may eventually find themselves in a difficult position. While the club are under no pressure to sell, keeping an unhappy player is never ideal, especially when a fee approaching £90 to £100 million could significantly strengthen multiple areas of the squad. The De Zerbi factor cannot be ignored either. The opportunity to work under a fellow Italian whom he knows and respects could prove highly attractive to Tonali, particularly at a Tottenham side looking to build a new identity. For now, though, the situation remains at an early stage. Tottenham are yet to open formal negotiations with Newcastle, and that is where the biggest hurdle lies. Expressing interest in a player and actually convincing Newcastle to part with one of their biggest assets are two very different challenges. The coming weeks will reveal whether Spurs are prepared to test Newcastle's resolve with a substantial offer. Until then, Tonali remains a Newcastle player, but this is one transfer story that shows no sign of disappearing anytime soon. Then, in some World Cup updates, Yoane Wissa's difficult first season at Newcastle United suddenly feels a lot easier to forget after a historic night with DR Congo at the World Cup. The 28-year-old endured a frustrating campaign following his £55 million move from Brentford. An injury suffered while on international duty shortly after joining Newcastle sidelined him for several months, and when he eventually returned, he struggled to find rhythm. With Newcastle's season ending in disappointment, the World Cup offered Wissa an opportunity to reset mentally and remind everyone of the player he can be. He seized that opportunity in dramatic fashion. Leading the line for DR Congo in their first ever World Cup appearance, Wissa scored the goal that earned his nation a memorable 1-1 draw against Portugal. It was not just an important goal, it was one of the most significant moments in Congolese football history. After the match, Wissa revealed just how emotional the moment was. "What did I feel? My whole life flashed before my eyes. I had waited for this moment for decades, just like the entire country. I saw myself again as a little boy dreaming of becoming a professional footballer. Emotionally, it was incredibly powerful." The striker admitted he was still struggling to process what had happened, describing an emotional phone call with his mother after the game. "I still can't believe it. I called my mother after the match and she couldn't stop crying. I know my name will remain part of history." Those words show exactly what the goal meant to him. This was not simply a World Cup goal. It was the culmination of years of sacrifice from both Wissa and his family. "My mother means everything to me, and so does my father. We are 3 brothers and we are very close. Playing for DR Congo is a way of honoring their sacrifices." For Newcastle supporters, there may be an added reason for optimism. Despite his struggles last season, Wissa's performance against Portugal was a reminder of the qualities that persuaded Newcastle to invest heavily in him. He looked sharp, confident and dangerous throughout the match, carrying himself with the belief that was often missing during his injury-disrupted club campaign. Sometimes players need a defining moment to rebuild confidence. Scoring a historic World Cup goal for your country certainly qualifies. Whether Wissa can carry that momentum back to St. James Park remains to be seen, but Newcastle will be hoping this tournament becomes the turning point in his career on Tyneside. After such a difficult year, seeing him write his name into DR Congo's football history is a story even the most disappointed Newcastle fans can appreciate.